Okay. So we're holding on top of Mem Gimel Amud Aleph. What we said was that sometimes the lulav is on Shabbos, and you take the lulav on Shabbos, and sometimes you don't take it on Shabbos. Depends if the first day is on Shabbos. The first day of Sukkot is on Shabbos, then you take the lulav. If it's one of the other days, then you don't take it on Shabbos. We asked, why is there a problem taking the lulav on Shabbos? So we said that there's a Gezeira de Rabbah. Rabbah said someone may not know how to do the mitzvah of lulav, and he's going to go to a baki. That's an expert. And the expert's going to show him how to do the lulav. The problem is that when he on the way, he's going to carry it 4 amos in the Rosh Hashanah. So Rashi on the top of the page, we didn't do that yesterday. He says, why carry it 4 amos in the Rosh Hashanah? What about carrying it out of his house? Is Haitzah in Haitzah and carrying, there's different problems. One is 4 amos in a public domain. Another one is from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. So why does Rabbah just choose the problem of 4 amos? Even to get it out of the house is an issue. Shema Yotzi Rosh Hashanah is what he should have said. He said, well, it's possible that he kept the lulav not in Rosh Hashanah. It wasn't really in Isra Haitzah. The issue was really carrying it 4 amos in Rosh Hashanah. Then he says something else. He says, Rashi, this is at the top Rashi. He says maybe he picked it up to be Yotze the mitzvah, or he picked it up to do it. And then he realized he doesn't know how to do it. So he quickly runs out with it. Now, he didn't pick it up, his akira. He was picking it up, wasn't with the intention to go out. So it's not considered mitzi, because the akira without an intention to go out, akira is uprooting from the ground, without an intention to leave. And then he just left. So it's really just a transfer of location, but you're missing an akira. Yeah, anyway, that's what he says. That's why it's only a problem of Maver Dalet Amos B'Shas Rabbah. So anyway, Tosfos quotes Rashi. He says there's a problem with this explanation. If someone picks up a lulav, picks up anything, and he doesn't have intention to carry it 4 amos, has intention to carry it 2 amos, but he ends up that instead of carrying it 2 amos, he goes 4 amos, you'd have the same issue. It's not Ma'abed. So what are you saying? This one, not that one? Anyway, okay, that's just on the detail of Rabbah. The big question is that if you don't have the lulav on the other days of Sukkot, those consecutive days, those the ones that come after the first day, you can't take the lulav. So why? Because you might carry it. So why are you allowed to take it on the first day? So that's the Gemara where we're holding. If that's the case, then the first day of Sukkot, what's the Mishnah saying you're allowed to take the lulav? You're allowed to take the lulav. You just told me that you can't take the lulav the other days because someone may carry it, and it'll be a violation of Shabbos. So what, on first day, there's no violation of Shabbos if you're going to carry it? You're not allowed to carry it in Rosh Hashanah. You know, just because it's a mitzvah doesn't mean that you're allowed to carry it. Right? Okay. The Gemara answers Rishain, but the Kinalei Rabbanim Beisei. If you remember in the Mishnah, there was a problem. They would take the lulav to the Beis HaMikdash, and there were guys over there, Chazanim, that would take the lulav from them. And the following day, they would come. They would take it on Erev Shabbos. The following day on Shabbos, they would come back, and the Chazanim would throw it. Everyone would grab. People started hitting each other. So they instituted that the lulav is taken only in the house. So the Gemara says, what are you asking me about why you're allowed to take the lulav on Shabbos? Because you might carry it. We made already an institution that the lulav has to be taken in the house. So there's no problem. No one's going to carry it. We told them that the mitzvah of lulav on the first day of Yom Tov is in the house. The Gemara says, well, that's a solution for now, because you've resolved it by making this institution that the lulav is taken in the house. We're talking about the first day of Sukkot. But what about before the takana? It sounds like before the takana, people were carrying the lulav to shul, not to shul in this case, right here to the Beis Hamikdash. Not they took it on the Erev Yom Tov to the Beis Hamikdash, but there's a problem that someone may carry it. If he didn't take it Erev Yom Tov, he may carry it on Yom Tov. Why do we say that you take the lulav, that you shake the lulav on the first day? The Gemara answers, "Al Rishon the Isim Menater B'Gvulin like Gozaber Rabbanan. Hanach the Lesser Menater B'Gvulin Gozaber Rabbanan." Very interesting answer. Gemara says the first day is more strict. It's more strict. We didn't make a gzeira. Why is the first day more strict? Well, the pasuk says, "L'kachtem lechem b'yem rishon," that you take the lulav on the first day. Where do you take it? Everywhere, not just in the Beis Hamikdash. In the Beis Hamikdash, we had usmachtem lefnei Hashem alekechem shivas yamim, that you take the lulav all 7 days. Smachtem, you rejoice with the lulav. That's what how the Gemara understands it. You rejoice with the lulav. That's in the Beis Hamikdash. But the first day is everywhere, so we didn't want to take away the mitzvah that's done everywhere, such a chashuv mitzvah, because of the gzeira d'Rabba. The other days, it's done in the Beis Hamikdash. You're right. And that's according to the Torah, it's done in the Beis Hamikdash. But it's not such a chashuv mitzvah. Why? How do you see that? Well, you don't do it everywhere. So for that mitzvah of taking it in the Beis Hamikdash, we made a gzeira d'Rabba. We're afraid someone may carry it. They didn't bring it beforehand. Okay. Well, the Gemara says, "Ihachi." If the first day is such a chashuv mitzvah, why don't we shake the lulav on Shabbos, on the first day? It's a good question. Like, what switched? Nothing switched. Why don't, if in those days they would take the lulav on Shabbos on the first day, they would shake it, not to carry it outside, but they would shake it on the first day. And there's a concern someone may carry it. We don't get involved with that concern because it's such a chashuv mitzvah. So what switched? It's the same mitzvah today. The Gemara answers, "Anan layadinin b'kviya diyarcha." You know what switched? We don't have confidence that we made the calendar correctly. Maybe we should have made Elul 29 days, 30 days. We should have made it 30 days. It's really tomorrow is Sukkot. So you're going to shake the lulav on Shabbos. It wasn't really Sukkot. So what's the problem? Problem is not the muktzah. I think the muktzah they could have avoided. If we tell you you're supposed to do it, then it won't be muktzah. The problem is that there's a gzeira d'Rabba, and it's not even someone may carry it, and it's not even the mitzvah. Well, the Gemara says, well, inu diyadi b'kviya diyarcha litzbo. You see, in Eretz Yisrael at this point, they were still being mekadesh al yedei Riyah. They were still, the Bezdin was determining when the month is. They weren't using a calendar. So whenever the Bezdin says it is, that's when it is. So you don't have to worry about it. If you made a mistake, it's still the Bezdin determines it. So if they're still using the Bezdin, so what's the problem? In Eretz Yisrael nowadays, well, not nowadays, but in those days when they were using the Bezdin, they should shake the lulav on Shabbos, on the first day. Should be a very interesting thing that in Eretz Yisrael they'd be shaking the lulav on Shabbos, and in Chutz La'aretz they don't. Umar says, "Hanachanami, you're right. You're right. You hear what's going on? This is a historical piece of Gemara that for a certain period of time, there was a Bezdin in Eretz Yisrael that was Mekadesh al Yedei Ariyah. They were shaking the lulav on Shabbos. And in Bavel, at the same time, they weren't shaking the lulav on Shabbos because they didn't know exactly. They were using calendars. They had it worked out, but it wasn't, because of that, they couldn't shake it on Shabbos. Yeah. Yeah, the Gemara determines soon, at the end of today's Gemara, we're going to reject this answer. Right now, it seems like the Gemara accepts it. You're right, that there's a difference, Eretz Yisrael, and the Gemara is going to reject it at the end of the page. If you take a look at Tosfos, Inu diyadi b'kviya diyarcha inachanami. You see that Tosfos starts at the bottom? Tosfos right away says, Ein maskana zu kaima. It looks like a maskana, but it doesn't hold. Maskana is a conclusion. It doesn't hold till the end. In the end, we're going to say that we keep it the same way. Yeah. Tosfos over here is then mechalik between shofar and lulav. Shofar, after the time of the Beis Hamikdash, they were blowing the shofar if there was a bezdin, even on Shabbos. Yeah. Yeah, we have the whole thing, all the Maimarim, that how does Shabbos push off such a big mitzvah of shofar? According to Chassidus, Shabbos accomplishes what shofar accomplishes. But Tosfos over here says that there's a difference between shofar and lulav. Lulav were more easy to drop because of the Gzeira D'Rabba, but shofar, we don't want to drop it. We're trying to get it to still be blown in places where there's a bezdin. And he says, why is that? Take a look at the first wide line of Tosfos. They want the shofar to be blown. It's a very important mitzvah. Yeah. Okay. Back to the Gemara. The Gemara says, and it will prove it to you, that there's going to be a difference between in Eretz Yisrael, where they're going to blow the shofar even after the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed. No, I'm sorry. They're going to shake the lulav even after the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed. Why? Because there's a bezdin. Because there's a bezdin that's mekadesh al Piyariya, and they know that what day it is, and they're going to shake the lulav on Shabbos. The Tanan, or the Tani Chada. The first Mishnah of this parak, what we learned yesterday, that if the first day of Sukkot is on Shabbos, so Erev Shabbos they would bring the lulav to the Beis Hamikdash, to the Harabayas, and they would shake the lulav there. But I have another brayso. It's really a Tanan. It's really the Mishnah before. It says LeBeis HaKnesses. Mishnah before, you turn a page back, it says Yom Tov Rishon Shel Chag Shekol Yis B'Shabbos Kolam Melichlas L'Levein LeBeis HaKnesses. Beis Hamikdash or the Beis HaKnesses? What's going on? So the Gemara answers: Shema Mina comes Beis Hamikdash Kayim, comes Man Shein Beis Hamikdash Kayim. Shema Mina. It's very clear that in Eretz Yisrael, they were taking the lulav to Shul Erev Shabbos because on Shabbos they needed the lulav. Why were they going to Shul? Why didn't they go to the Beis Hamikdash? Because there was no Beis Hamikdash. See, they shook the lulav on Shabbos, even though there was no Beis Hamikdash. It's a raya that, without a Beis Hamikdash, you still shake the lulav on Shabbos. Even after the Beis Hamikdash. Why? Because they knew when the month was, what day Yom Tov was. Okay. Gemara asks a very general question. It's like challenges everything that we think. Like, where do you know very basic ideas, like elementary? It says the Isa min atayra b'gvulan minalan. How do you know that you have to shake the lulav when you're not in the Beis Hamikdash? I know it says you take it, but maybe that's in the Beis Hamikdash. How do you know you take it outside the Beis Hamikdash? I know it says usmachtem lifnei Hashem alekechem. It says lifnei Hashem alekechem, you rejoice in front of Hashem. That's in the Beis Hamikdash. How do you know that the lulav is done outside the Beis Hamikdash? Yeah, I can hear other parts of the Jewish world. They have this question about why do you keep these laws? All these laws, that law, not those laws, and Tumah and Tara doesn't apply, but Nida applies. They challenge the Orthodox world. So they could say, how do you know that this applies outside the Beis Hamikdash? So the Tanya, the claim was Leviticus is not. You don't keep the Karbanas. You don't keep the Tara. You don't keep all Tumah and Tara nowadays. You don't have Taras, and you just pick one law. So okay, the Tanya lekachtem. We have a brayso. It says lekachtem you should take. That means that it's not that the Bezdin takes, sometimes you have these things that the Bezdin has to count the oivel or something. No, every person has to have a lulav. Lachem, lakachtem lachem, mishal lachem, it has to be yours. L'hoitzias hashol v'asagazel. It can't be borrowed, it can't be stolen. Bayayim, lakachtem lachem bayayim rishon. You take the lulav on the day, the first day. Ba'afilu b'Shabbos, you take the lulav even on Shabbos. Rishon, it says B'yam HaRishon, but first the Gemara starts off with just the word Rishon. Rishon tells me, Afila B'Gvulan. Even outside of the Beis Hamikdash. HaRishon, the word HaRishon, only the first day pushes off Shabbos. Yeah, the hay of HaRishon is a miyad. Only the first day. We said by Yom HaRishon that the first day pushes off Shabbos, but it's only the first day because of the hay. Hay is a miyuta. Tosfos asks on the bottom, HaRishon. He says, sometimes hay is a miyut, sometimes it's a ribai. How do you know? He says it depends on the context. Okay. We had a Gemara before about if the hay is marbe or memayed. We had that Gemara once. Whatever the case is, we have a source from this that the word Rishon teaches us that you take the lulav even outside of the Beis Hamikdash. So Rashi points out it's not because it's an extra word. It's just because it doesn't tell me that I have to take it in the Beis Hamikdash proper. Yeah, so from the reading of the pasuk itself, I can understand that it's not specifically in the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, Amar Mar, as we go back to explain something from the brayso. It says, "Bayayim va'afilu b'Shabbos," that you take the lulav even on Shabbos. I learned it from the word bayayim, which when on Shabbos, only if the first day of Sukkot falls on Shabbos, then you shake the lulav on Shabbos. Yeah. The Gemara asks a very important question. It says, Michti, why does the Torah need to tell that to me? That I take the lulav on Shabbos? Tiltal ba'almahu. It's just muktzah. Itzrich kral mishrei tiltal. The Torah tells me that don't be concerned with muktzah. So muktzah was instituted when the people came back from Bavel. They weren't so careful with Shabbos. So Ezra and Nehemiah, they instituted that don't do anything on Shabbos, just what you're supposed to do. They said you can't touch anything. And then they started to ease up a little bit. The kalim that you can touch, you can use other things. But basically it was a rabbinic institution. So the Torah tells me, right, at Har Sinai, Torah tells me that you can take the lulav on Shabbos. Don't worry about Ezra and Nehemiah. It was never a concern. The Torah doesn't tell me about what's going to come up. The Torah has to tell me that don't worry about muktzah. Yeah, Rashi says, the Mishri tiltul derabanan, adayin le'neser tiltul ba'ilam, ba'kas of latirkan, it was never forbidden. Okay. Amar Rava le'nitzruch el machshiri lulav aliba dahaitana. Comes along our Gemara and says, you know what we're talking about? That brisa is a much bigger chiddush. We're not saying that don't worry about muktzah. We're telling you don't worry about malachas daraisa. Well, what malacha daraisa is in lifting up a lulav and taking an esrog. So that's a malacha. You take something in your hand. There's no word. It says no. We're talking about machshire, preparing the lulav and esrog. Oh, that's a big deal. That you're allowed to prepare the lulav and esrog. The Tanya lulav v'chol machshir v'dechenes Shabbos div Rabbi Eliezer. Remember, Rabbi Eliezer is Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkenes, Rabbi Eliezer Agadol. In Masechta Shabbos, he held that mitzvahs milah and kol machshirav, you're allowed to prepare the knife. You're allowed to make a knife on Shabbos to have even though you could have done it beforehand. He says it doesn't matter. It's a mitzvah. It pushes up Shabbos. This mitzvah pushes up Shabbos. That's based on the pasuk. But the machshirei mitzvah also push up Shabbos. So this mitzvah, which is done on Shabbos, which is taking the lulav, the machshirin also push up Shabbos. That's Rabbi Eliezer's opinion, and that's what we're saying here. By Yom, not that you don't have to worry about muktzah. You're allowed to violate Shabbos to get the lulav. That means cutting it off the tree. My time with Rabbi Eliezer. How does Rabbi Eliezer get this? I'm a krab bayayim v'afilu b'Shabbos. We learned it from the pasuk. It says l'kachtem lechem b'yom rishon.
Let me ask him, what about making matzah on Pesach, on Shabbos, baking it? It has, I'm not quoting the exact words, but
right.
Yeah,
could be.
Does Rabbi Eliezer say the same thing there?
It could be. I didn't see it, but it could be. Yeah. So you see what he says? He says, okay, Bayayim Afilu B'Shabbos, and now we knew it says Bayayim Afilu B'Shabbos. We had the brisa. We just thought that it was just telling me that don't mix in any rabbanans over here. No, don't. It's even to violate the arisas you're allowed to do in order to have your lulav. So, and he learns from Bayayim Afilu B'Shabbos, Bayayim Rishon, right? Well, everyone argues with Rabbi Eliezer, but what do they do with the word bayan? That seems to be an extra word. It must be teaching something. So he said, "Mi bayan v'lay b'layla." You don't shake the lulav by night. That's an easy one. Okay. What about Rabbi Eliezer? What does he say? That you shake the lulav by night? The Rabbi Eliezer bayan v'lay b'layla minalei. He used the bayan already to tell me about Shabbos. That you shake the lulav on Shabbos. How does he know that you don't shake the lulav by night? So he says, "Nafkale misei for the crop." He has another word that says yamim, and over there, that yamim tells me that it's only by day. See, what's happening here is by yamim and yamim. Yamim could mean a day, and it could be day in contrast to what? In contrast to night, could be. That's what the Rabbanan are saying. L'kachtem lechem b'yom rishon means you take it on the first day, not by night. The Rabbi Eliezer says l'kachtem b'yom rishon means you take it every single day. Every single day, including Shabbos. So where does Rabbi Eliezer know that you don't do it by night? So he quotes the pasuk. It says usmachtem lefnei Hashem elokeichem shivas yamim, and that means yamim v'lo leilos. I have another pasuk. It says you rejoice in front of Hashem 7 days. That means only the day, not the night. It means you shake the lulav by day. The Rabbanan, why can't they do the same thing? Say Yismachtem Fnei Hashem L'Keichem Shivas Yamim is talking about the day and not the night. We say, I don't know if that's really what it means. Imei Hasam Havamina Leilef Yamim Yamim Misukah. I would have said exactly the opposite. Malahalan Yamim Vafil Leilos Afkan Nami Yamim Vafil Leilos. I have a pasuk by Sukkah. It says, "Basukas teishu shivas yamin." What does that mean? You dwell in the sukkah for 7 days. That means only by day and not by night? No, it means by day and by night. So what does it mean now? Rejoice in front of Hashem. 7 days. It means 7 days and not the night? No, the Rabbanan say it means 7 days and the night. So if I would just rely on that, according to the Rabbanan, you would end up shaking the lulav by night. And the halacha is that you don't shake the lulav. But where do they know that from? They know that from, not from yamim, because yamim is an ambiguous word. Yamim could mean by day and by night. Yamim could mean just by day. So I don't know what it means. So therefore, I know from bayayim, somehow bayayim arishain tells me that it's the day more than yamim tells me the day. I'm not sure why. Yeah. Now the Gemara says, all of this discussion, according to the Rabbanan, is all based on the premise that smachtem lefnei Hashem lekechem shivas yamim is ambiguous. Why? Because I could have thought that it's similar to Sukkah, where it says Sukkah shivas yamim, by Sukkah states with shivas yamim, and by Sukkah I have to sit in the Sukkah by day and by night, and we know that it's by day and by night. It's not just by day, even though it says shivas yamim. How do we know that it's by day and by night? So the Tana Rabbanan, Sukkah states with shivas yamim, yamim v'afilu leilos, days including the nights. How do you jump to that conclusion? Maybe it's days and not nights. Just arbitrarily, you just say yamim, yamim v'afilu leilos. It says v'dinhu. It's actually logical. It goes like this: Nemer kan yamim v'nemer belulav yamim. Well, it says by the lulav it says yamim. I guess the smachtem lefnei Hashem lekechem shivas yamim. Mala halan yamim v'leileilas. Afkan yamim v'leileilas. Also by the sukkah, it should only be by day, not by night. Or go away from this path, and maybe it's different. Nemar kan yamim v'nemar b'miluim yamim. Mala halan yamim v'afileilas. Afkan yamim v'afileilas. I have another place where it says yamim. So we're going to have like this. I have by the sukkah where it says shivas yamim. We'll put that in the center. I have by the lulav where it says usmachtem lefnei Hashem lekechem shivas yamim. That means only by day. Rejoice in front of Hashem. Then I have by the miluim, which is the inauguration of the Beis Hamikdash. It says the kohanim were supposed to stay in the base of Pesach. Oyel mayad leiseitzu shivas yamim. Pesach oyel mayad leiseitzu shivas yamim. They're supposed to stay in the oyel mayad for 7 days, including the nights. So I have yamim by the lulav, which is days only. I have yamim by miluim, which is days and nights. And I have yamim of sukkah, which I don't know which side to pull it to. Shivas yamim, Basukkah stage shivas yamim, is it only by day, similar to lulav? Or is it by day and night, similar to miluim, to the inauguration? So nir l'midaima, let's take a look. What's it more similar to? They're doing comparisons here. So done in davar shemitzvasei kol hayom, davar shemitzvasei kol hayom. Look, I'm talking about the sukkah. The sukkah. Every time I do something, I'm supposed to do it in the sukkah. I eat, sleep, whatever, everything, walk around. It's supposed to be in the sukkah. The lulav I just do once a day. The miluim was I was supposed to live in the oyel mayad, the kohanim, those kohanim by the inauguration. So sukkah is more similar to miluim because it's like a full day thing. So it's probably the nights as well, similar to miluim. And don't prove to me, well, from lulav, which is just a momentary mitzvah. You do it once and then you're done. So it's clearly sukkah is more similar to the miluim. Or maybe don't go that path. Sukkah, I'm still doing sukkah. And I'm still doing lulav. The miluim is all over. It was just a one-time event in the desert. So I should learn sukkah from lulav which is only by day. We're looking for the translation of the word yamim, because it doesn't mean only by day. It's more similar to lulav now. So I have two options. Do I look at something that's
it's the same thing as Shivas Yomim for eating matzahs. Why doesn't it bring that? You have to eat it Shivas Yomim, the matzahs.
Yeah. Maybe because the Gemara concludes about the matzahs that it's reshus. You don't really need to eat it. But that doesn't mean, oh, you're right. Because then you would still have the issue. What does it mean? You're allowed to eat chametz at night? And only by day you eat matzahs. Yeah, it seems to be like a general question. That's what you're asking. It seems to be a general translation issue. What does the word day mean? Does it mean during the day? I guess if it says one day, or the first day, then it's more similar to just like the day. But when you start doing several days, then maybe you're actually referring to the nights as well. That would explain why Bayayim was so clear that it's only by day. And then Shivas Yomim, at least according to the Rabbanan, Bayayim meant by day only.
Quick question.
Yeah.
The word samaktam, it seems that the Gemara has been assuming throughout this discussion that means, or at least includes, taking the lulav.
Yeah.
So in general, when the Gemara uses samaktam, does it mean all the mitzvahs that are assigned to that day?
Yeah. On the next page, there's a Rashi. Rashi says the ikal mitay lameimar the hayusmachtem lefnei Hashem shivasem lav simchas lulav kama. The Gemara is going to have a possibility that maybe usmachtem is not referring to the lulav. Not that it actually isn't, but maybe people would say, and we could translate it differently. Yeah, this is by tradition. That's what it means.
You're asking specifically lulav.
Yeah.
So then, what do you do? What do we do with statements that it means we must rejoice, meaning we must have wine every night?
Yeah. Yeah. Tosfos mentioned this in the first Tosfos of the Perek. Because the Mishnah said Simcha. He said Simcha is 8 days. Halal v'Simcha was 8 days. So Rashi said Simcha meant to have the basar shlamim, to have the meat of the karbanos. This much bisming the shkayam was only with the basar. But then we have yeah, you're asking maybe the samachta b'chagecha is referring to the mitzvahs of the holiday and not to drinking wine and having meat. Yeah.
Well, aren't those? I may be in a logical ellipse here, but aren't those part of samakta is one of the mitzvahs of the day, and it's a question of how you do it.
Right.
Right. It's
Right. Right. I don't know. I'm not sure why you smachtem l'knei is like specifically the lulav. Maybe it means you should eat the meat or something in the Beis Hamikdash. Okay. So we say, what should you compare the Shivas Yamim of Sukkah to lulav, which is only by day, or miluim? Where it says Talmud Laimar, the teaching tells us teishvu l'gzeira shava. Where does it say the word teishvu? It says Basukkas teishvu Shivas Yamim, and it also says teishvu by the miluim. So nemer kan teishvu, nemer miluim teishvu. So The sukkah you have to be in 7 full days. That means day and night. So if it would have said, when it says, the Rabbanan are saying, that if you want to tell me, Yusmachtem Lefnei Hashem Alekeichem means only by day, the Shivas Yamim, only by day, maybe it's similar to Sukkah, which is by night as well. How do I know Sukkah is by night? Well, I have a Gezer Shava that is similar to Miluim. How do I know Miluim is by night? I think Gemara didn't ask. Why didn't the Gemara ask it? Because the pasuk says, pasuk says, Teishvu Yoimam V'Layla Shivas Yamim. Over there, the pasuk is clear. Teishvu Yoimam V'Layla. So by Miluim, that's like the that you have. It's clearly in the pasuk that it's day and night. Sukkot, it says Teishvu, similar to Miluim. I would have thought Usmachtem Lefnei Hashem Alekeichem is the same. I need the Bayoim according to the Rabbanan to tell me that it's only by day. Okay, Arava Shiva, Ketzar. The Mishnah said that Arava, which is the Hishana, has done 7 days. Arava B'Shvi, my time Adachya Shabbos. You know, it's interesting. When it came to the Lulav, we said that it doesn't push off Shabbos only if it's the first day. It's only performed on Shabbos if it's the first day. If it's the other days, it doesn't. Why not? What was our answer? He said because the other days are not outside the Beis Hamikdash. It's not a mitzvah chashuva. But the lulav on the first day is a mitzvah chashuva. It's everywhere. The Gemara asks straight away by the Arava. So now tell me what's going on by the Arava. When the Hishana Rabbah falls on Shabbos, you do the Hishanas on Shabbos, not the other days of Sukkot. Arava b'shvi my time dachi Shabbos. Am Rabbi Yechanan kedei lefarsa mashim min haTorah. We want everyone to know that it's deraisa, so we're going to do it on Shabbos. What's the big deal? It turns out we're going to learn a brisa later that the Baitusim, the Tzedukim and Baitusim, they didn't accept this mitzvah of Arava. Doesn't say it in the Torah. It's tradition, and they didn't accept it. We want everyone to know that it's a deraisa, so we do it even on Shabbos. So we ask a question. The lulav all 7 days is also could be challenged, that maybe you don't take the lulav all 7 days. Because the pasuk, Reb Naftali, Usmachtem Lefnei Hashem Alekeichem means something else. The rabbis interpreted Usmachtem Lefnei Hashem Alekeichem that it means you take the lulav all 7 days. But we should take the lulav all 7 days, even if they fall on Shabbos. One of them falls on Shabbos, whichever one, to show that it's biblical law. If you're just trying to make sure no one makes a mistake to follow by Tusim. The Gemara says lulav gzeir mishum derabba. Lulav is, we had a problem. He said someone may carry it. Says Yahachi Arava Nami Legzer. So what? The Arava, you have the same issue. Someone may carry the Arava, the Hishanas. The Gemara says no. Arava shluchi bezdin ma'asila. Lulav lakol maser. The Arava was brought by Shluchi Bezdin. So we're not concerned of Rabbah. Rabbah said that someone may carry it, someone that doesn't know how to do the lulav might carry it. But that's only by a lulav where everyone has his own lulav. But the Arava was brought by the Shluchi Bezdin. And they would bring it Erev Shabbos. And it was only the Kayanim that would use the Arava. If that's the case,
and it was only on the first day that the Kohanim did it, right?
Well, it was really every day, but the big day was the 7th day. Was Hoshana Rabbah was the big day. So the Gemara is saying, we asked, why didn't we make a Gzeira de Rabbah? First that we have to start the question differently. Why do you say to do it on Shabbos? So we said, we have to make sure that everyone knows that it's a Torah law. They said, well, you didn't do that by lulav when on the other 7 days. They said, that's a Gezeira de Rabbah. Said, well, what happened to the Gzera Derabba by a Rava? So we said, well, that's only the Kayanim. It says, Ihachi, if that's the issue, then Kol Yom Anami Lidche. If it's only the Kayanim, so why don't you do it every day of Sukkot if it falls on Shabbos? What's your concern? The Gemara says, you know what our concern is? We don't want the Arava to be stricter than Lulav. People are going to think that Arava is more important than the Lulav, and it turns out the Lulav is more important. Arava, you do all 7 days. And the Lulav, only if the first, all 7 days, even if it's on Shabbos. The Lulav, you only do on Shabbos if it's the first day. So the Gemara says, well, the Litche B'Yam Tov Rishon, it won't be more strict than Lulav if you just do it on the same day that Lulav does it. Why don't they just do them both on the same day? Arava pushes off Shabbos on the first day, and Lulav pushes off Shabbos on the first day. The Gemara says, then no one's going to know that there's really a mitzvah of Arava. They're going to think that this is part of the mitzvah of Lulav. We want a clearly defined mitzvah of Arava. So it's Velitchi B'chad Mehanach. So why don't you do a different day? Why just the last day? It says, well, given the Kamafkas, we're not going to do all the days. We're going to do one of the days. You don't want to do the first one. So we did it the last one. Yeah.
Maybe I lost something here. Which Arab is the Hoshanis?
We're talking about Hishana Rabbah.
Okay.
Yeah. We're going to have a discussion in a minute what exactly is Hishana Rabbah. But
Hishana Rabbah is just one day, but all the days when we do walk around, that's when we're
in the Beis Hamikdash, there was also a procession or there was an event every day. Hishana Rabbah was more. Yeah. But that may be what we do with the Hishanas, as you're saying, that we say Hishanas and we walk around. We hold the Lulav and Esrog. But probably originally it was the Arava.
All right.
So we ask now, why don't we do Hishana Rabbah nowadays? It should be on Shabbos. It says, we don't have a perfect calendar. We hope we have it. So we're doing it, but we're not going to push off Shabbos. So it says, well, what about in Eretz Yisrael? What about them? They're using a bezdin. It says, well, Kiyasa bar Hadiya Amar. This always surprised me. So it was very shocking. Bar Hadiya was this fellow in the end of Masech the Brachas that was the dream interpreter. His name was Bar Hadiya. He was the one that told Abaya this, told Rava that. Then they were upset with him. One of them, the one that didn't pay, was upset with him. Rava was upset with him. I thought that he wasn't Jewish. Anyway, look at what happens. Bar Hadiya said, you know what? In Eretz Yisrael, they made sure that Hishana Rabbah never fell on Shabbos. You're asking, why doesn't it push off? Well, it maybe would, but it's not relevant because they arranged that they would make Rosh Chodesh always in a way that it shouldn't fall, Hishana Rabbah shouldn't fall on Shabbos. Kiyasa Ravin v'chol nechusei, when Ravin came and all the travelers, Amri Ikla, they said it's not true. It did fall on Shabbos. V'loi dachi, and they didn't do it on Shabbos. It didn't push off Shabbos. Velakasha, why not? Amar Rav Yosef says, Man leimalan da Rabba benetila dilma bezakifa. You know why? You know why they didn't do any Aravas on Shabbos? Because the mitzvah of Arava is not a procession. There's no procession that you do. All you do is you take an Arava and you put it on the side of the Mizbeach and you just sits over there. There's nothing to do. That's the mitzvah of Arava. So you're asking why didn't they push off Shabbos for it? Because there was no Mizbeach. The whole mitzvah was just to stand it on the side of the Mizbeach. Yeah, so that's why they didn't do it.
So there was one Arava for all the Jewish people on the side of the Mizbeach.
But what Rabbi Yosef is saying is that there was no procession. There was nothing to do. It was just a zakifa. You stood it up on the side of the Mizbeach, it went up, it hung over the side, the top, and that was the mitzvah of Arava.
And that's how, so lakachtem in the plural doesn't apply to this then.
Well, lakachtem lachem is referring to the lulav.
Only.
Then we have these halacha l'maishim Sinai that have to do with Arava. The Gemara is going to discuss halacha l'maishim Sinai or whatever on the next tomorrow. But what is the mitzvah? What is the source of the mitzvah of Arava? But meanwhile, we don't even know what it is. It could be it's a procession where people are supposed to take it and do something, or it could be it just stands on the side of the Mizbeach. If it stands on the side of the Mizbeach, then we don't have any issue why they didn't do it after the Mizbeach, after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, because there was no Mizbeach. The Gemara says, okay, now we're going to have several questions from Abaya and Rabbi Yosef. Esvei Abaya, Lulav Arava Shisha V'Shiva. The Lulav in the Arava is either 6 days or 7 days, depending on when Shabbos falls out. My love Kalulav. You put the two together. It's probably a procession, some sort of ceremony that you do, that you take the Lulav, you take the Arava, there's something to take. My love Kalulav. The Gemara says, Ma Lulav Benatila, Afarava Benatila. Just like you take the Lulav, you take the Arava. The Gemara says, Midi area. Is that like necessary? Is that really what you're required to say? Hakadisa, no. Each one is talking about, it's just a number. It's either 6 days or 7 days. It doesn't have to do with exactly that you have to be done similarly. Esvei Abaye has another question. My love Barava. There was a procession. Every day they circled the Mizbeach once, and on Hoshana Rabbah they did 7 times. What did they circle the Mizbeach with? They circled it with the Arava. That means that if there's a procession, then it should be done even after the Beis Hamikdash. Why wasn't it done after the Beis Hamikdash? The Gemara says, how do you know they were circling with the Arava? Loi, the Lulav. They were walking around the Mizbeach with the Lulav, not with the Arava. The Arava was left alone. It was just put on the side, on the Mizbeach. Now Abai is getting, he's asking Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef keeps answering him. He says, but Rabbi Nachman doesn't say so. Rabbi Nachman says in the name of his father-in-law, Rabbi Baravua Barava. Yeah, you see that? Zalman. Barava. Amalei, who Amalach Barava? And Amina Balulav. Yeah, I'm not impressed, Rabbi Yosef says. Rabbi Nachman says that it's with Arava. I don't say so. Doesn't affect me what his opinion is. Itmar, we have a statement. Rabbi Lazar Amir Balulav. What were they walking around the Mizbeach with? Rabbi Lazar says they walked around with the Lulav. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nassan Amar Rabbi Chanina Bar Rava. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nassan Amar Rabbi Chanina says Bar Rava. Okay, that's just like Rabbi Nachman said. Rabbi Nachman Amar Rabbi Bar Bar Rava. Okay. Amalei Rava le Rabbi Yitzchak Frei de Rabbi Bar Bachana. Rava says to Rabbi Bar Bachana's son, Rabbi Yitzchak, Bar Uriah, son of a Talmud Chacham. Come, I'm going to tell you something nice that your father said. The Lulav. Every day they circled the Mizbeach once. Hoshana Rabbah 7 times. You know what they were using? They were using a Lulav to walk around the Mizbeach. That's what Rabbi Lazar says, and I heard it from your father, Rabbi Bar Bachana. Esvei, the Gemara has a question. The question is going to come because in this brisa we're going to mention the term chibut arava, the banging of arava. That means that it was actually a ceremony. That's going to, we'll see in a second. Lulav deiches haShabbos b'tchilasei v'arava b'seifer. The first day of Sukkot falls on Shabbos, and the lulav, you take the lulav. Arava you do if Hoshana Rabbah's on Shabbos. Pa'amachas chol shvi shel Rav Elias b'Shabbos. One time, Hoshana Rabbah was on Shabbos. They brought these branches of Arava Me'erev Shabbos v'nichum ba'azara. They put it in the azara. The Kirbem by Tusim. By Tusim saw what's going on. They're about to do a rabbinic ceremony. This wasn't a Perushim ceremony. They put these Aravas and they put them under stones. Now, stones are muktzah, according to the rabbis. Ignorant people came that belonged to the Perushim side. They didn't know the Helchas muktzah well, and they just took the Aravas out. They put them on the side of the Mizbeach because they don't acknowledge that Chibut Harav is Deicha Shabbos. They wanted us not to do it. And we were going to do it on Shabbos. Alma benetilahu, you see it says Chibut Harava. That means that there's actually a ceremony. Yeah, I guess you have to ignore the Zakman B'tzidem Mizbeach part. But, okay. The Gemara says Tiyufta. It's a strong question. See that there is a ceremony. Oh, so Vela Nidchel. So if there's a ceremony, why doesn't it push off Shabbos? We said that it could push off Shabbos if you know the calendar, which in Eretz Yisrael they did. So the Gemara answers, we want to keep the Jewish people with the same way they do it in Chutz La'aretz. Eretz Yisrael has to follow Chutz La'aretz. We don't push off Shabbos. They shouldn't push off Shabbos. But Yom Tov Rishon done leidachel. But you didn't say that at the beginning of today. We said in Eretz Yisrael, Lulav is going to be on Shabbos, and in Chutz La'aretz, it won't be on Shabbos. Now you're telling me that in Eretz Yisrael it won't be on Shabbos because of Bayas is not on Shabbos. It's contradictory. There's no symmetry here. In the Amri, they say Liditu Nami Leidachel. Remember, I mentioned Taisva says before that what we said before wasn't the maskana. That's because of this Gemara. You know what? In Eretz Yisrael, they're not taking the lulav either on Shabbos. They're not taking the arava. They're not taking the lulav. Vela kasha, why not? Vela kasha hani tarti, but we had a contradiction between two brises. The Tanicha the Kalaam, Melichin es lulavim la'arabais. Tanidach lebeis hakneses, and metatin kambas banch beis migdash kayim, kambas banch ein beis migdash kayim. He gave me a whole drasha about. There's a contradiction. They took it to the Harabayas. They took it to the Shul. Well, one was after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. You see, they took it on Shabbos. They shook it on Shabbos. They took it Erev Shabbos. Obviously, in Eretz Yisrael, they are doing it. Gemara says, "Lie, you got it wrong. That's not the right answer." Idi v'idi b'zman shebeis Hamikdash kayam. That was when the Beis Hamikdash was standing. When the Beis Hamikdash was standing. Then you either took it to the Harabayas or you took it to the Shul. They had Shuls. Yeah, it's a whole discussion. Did they have Shuls during the Beis Hamikdash? Yes, they had Shuls, the Gemara says. When the Beis Hamikdash was there, then they would take it on Shabbos. Once the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, they don't take it on Shabbos at all. Not the Arava, not the Lulav. Why? Because we don't do it. And they follow us. We want that the tradition should be the same. Okay, let's leave the Gemara over here. That's what Rabbi.
Very interesting.